The Unity profiler is scary. There's too many numbers and most of us don't know where to start. When I first opened the profiler, I immediately got overwhelmed and I closed it again. And in this video, I want to make it easy for you to start, to get over the fear of profiling. Things that you should know before you start profiling that is not commonly talked about, which will really help you get over the fear and just start. Okay, we are going to be using this Stylized Fantasy Armory package by Daniel Mistas. Let's get started. So to begin with, I want you to get used to the shortcut Control-7. This will open up the profiler and you can now start profiling. Instead of going to window analysis profiler, which is the long way, I want you to get used to the shortcut in the beginning, so you'll feel more like a boss. Next, I want you to get used to the pause game shortcut. There is the shortcut to record profiling information, F9. You can get used to that, but it's fine. But more importantly, I want you to turn it off in the beginning and then you go and play the game. Now, when you're playing the game, I'm playing it in the background. I usually do this on my second monitor, but if you don't have a second monitor, it's completely fine. Let's say you're moving around in the world and let's say there's a lag happening in this area. So we go over there and then press Control, Shift and P to pause the game. Control, Shift and P. Then you press Escape and then you go back to the profiler. This is how you profile. You don't hit start record immediately, but instead you need to use the keyboard shortcut to pause the game. Okay, this will save you a lot of time and performance because profiling is an intensive task. If you keep it on record for the whole time during gameplay, it is going to, slow down your performance. Now, once you pause your game, you can come back and press F9 to start recording, or just click on this button and then press Control Shift P again to resume. And now your profiling starts. And you can see that this is overwhelming. How do we deal with this? I'm going to press Control Shift and P to pause the game and press Escape to bring my mouse. And now we have the profiler. Let's start profiling. Now, right off the bat, if I use my scroll wheel to move down, you can see that I only have 3 modules active: CPU usage, rendering, and memory. These are probably the only things that you need when you're beginning. Okay, you can click on profiler modules and then enable just these 4 highlights: CPU usage, rendering, and memory. Disable everything else unless you need them to be there. Okay, for example, audio is something that you only need once you add audio. You need to profile for physics if your game is a physics related game. Then profile only individual aspects of the game. You don't need to have all of this information recorded at every frame. You can disable certain things so that it doesn't get recorded. So start with CPU usage, rendering, and memory. Okay, and among these, memory is probably the most confusing one. And I don't want you to learn it right away. Okay, just have it there on the profiler when you're starting out. And just look into this, just read it. It will be complicated right now. But more importantly, focus on these 2 things: CPU usage and rendering. CPU usage is obvious, it's CPU usage. These are often calculations done by the CPU, okay? Rendering is information that is related to rendering of the game. So things like draw calls, batches, triangles, all of these different things that will really help you identify bottlenecks when it comes to rendering. Now, I don't want you to learn all of these right away. You will learn it through time. That is the only natural way to learn. And then at the top, we have a highlights module. If you click on that, it will show you the current CPU active time and the GPU active time. And when you see red on the highlights module, it often means that one of the 2 is exceeding the target frame time. So in this particular frame, CPU is active for 30 milliseconds, which is way higher than the target frame time. By the way, you can change it by clicking on this drop down here. And then you can see that this is taking a lot of time. How do we actually profile in the beginning? You click on CPU usage, you click on rendering, and then read what's happening. Rendering is fairly obvious. This just gives you information. When you have different types of batching, you can see all of the information that this thing saves. You can see the number of draw calls, you can see the number of batches, and you can see that these are high for this particular project, which is not a bad thing by itself. Okay, it depends on the type of project that you're targeting. If you're targeting PC, then having higher draw calls is comparatively fine. But if you're targeting mobile, you need to lower it down to, let's say, 1,000 or something like that. Okay, now let's go back to CPU usage, which is probably the one that you need to look into. And you right away go to hierarchy, this one here, and figure out what exactly is causing the problem. So if you open this, you can see it's update scene, and you can see that one particular process called Semaphore.WaitForSignal. I don't know what that does. I'll be honest with you, I have no idea what that does. This is what is taking a lot of the time. And this is cool because you don't have to be the most logical person. You don't have to know everything in this. But if you look at it from a far angle, you can see that the actual thing that is taking a lot of time is actually the editor loop. Editor loop is taking 22 milliseconds. Okay, if you go to a previous frame, you can see that editor loop is taking 8 milliseconds, but in that particular frame it is taking 22.37 milliseconds. And the thing about editor loop is that once you build the game, it will go away. So anything in the editor loop you can ignore unless you're creating an editor script and stuff like that, which will cause lag in the editor. That is a completely different thing. But let's say this particular thing called Semaphore.WaitForSignal, I have no idea what this does, is taking up the time, right? How do we fix this? To fix this, we go to the timeline, and timeline gives you what exactly is happening in this particular frame. And here it does all of these things, and then it does this thing called the editor loop. Okay, and then this is the next frame, and this is the most important tip when you're starting out. Color codes. Identifying color codes is really, really useful. The biggest one is this one, which is gray. Labels that are marked gray in the timeline are more often than not 90% time you can ignore it completely and build the game. Okay, these are things that are outside of your control. These things are waiting labels. Waiting labels simply means this thing will wait for something else to finish so that something else can be done. Okay, waiting simply means it's waiting. It's not doing anything during this period, which means the problem is actually somewhere else. Okay, if you want to save this 3.51 milliseconds, you can't save it, but you can reduce this waiting time. Now I'll get to that in just a little bit, how to fix it, but let me discuss other color codes as well. There is green. Green means things that are C# related. Code, okay? So your scripts, all of these things will be related to green. So this on top is the player loop. Inside the player loop is the update scene. Update scene consists of all of these things in its own layers. And you can see that nothing is happening during this waiting period. Okay, this is just a waiting thing. So understanding that this itself a hierarchy downwards will really, really help. Now, if you go down the hierarchy, you can see a different color, orange. Orange is mostly used for physics, but you can see that orange in the higher up is green. So green is like the code, and then orange is the physics related code that is inside the green. So you need to understand how this timeline works. So you can see this is actually a hierarchy downwards. So that's the timeline view explained. And there are other color codes like purple. You have a kind of like greenish color for audio related things, and you learn it with time. Understand that gray means things that you can probably ignore 90% of the time. Green means code. That is part of it, and green can be split into its own individual colors. Okay, and then finally, how do you solve this issue? Let's say Semaphore.WaitForSignal is causing the issue. You solve it with googling it. You don't know. Okay, I don't know what all of these things do, so just google it or use AI tools like ChatGPT. AI is really, really useful. Now you can just ask ChatGPT what is Semaphore.WaitForSignal, and you can read more about what it does, and you can ask questions about it and how to improve it. Okay, but more often than not, because it is gray, I'm not going to. If we build the game and learn how to profile the build version of the game, we could improve it. Okay, you can go to build profiles on Windows. When you are not creating the final build of the game, enable development build and enable auto connect profiler. Okay, and then build the game. This way, whenever you have the build of the game open, profiler will run, and then you can profile the build version of the game. Let me actually show you this. Let me actually build the game to show you what it does. Now, if you have a second monitor, it is really useful because you can drag the profiler onto the second monitor. Okay, so the game has been building. Now, if I go back to Unity by pressing Alt Tab, you can see if you go to the highlights, CPU usage time has decreased a lot. And semaphore for wait for signal on the render thread this time. Interesting. And you can see it is only taking 1.7 milliseconds, which is great. And the profiler is showing no issues at all. Everything is working fine. So I hope you get the idea that profiling is not that complicated. Nobody knows what they're doing when they're starting it. And now it's way easier to profile than ever with the help of AI tools and stuff like that. So understand all of these basic tips, learn to use shortcuts, learn to use the shortcuts to pause the game, understand what different color codes mean, use AI tools or anything to learn what they do. If they're causing a problem, if they're not causing the problem, leave it. You don't have to learn everything in the game. Okay? So that is all. I hope this was useful. And as always, I'll see you in the next one. I love you.